Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, a special Summer of Gaming 2022 edition. I'm Damon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Jonathan Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation Podcast Beyond.
Beyond. Hey, Damon.
Hello there. And since this is a very PlayStation-centric show, we're coming hot on the heels of the latest Sony State of Play presentation. We're joined by another frequent contributor to Podcast Beyond, Max Scoville.
Hey, I have an Xbox too, you know. It's fun.
I also have an Xbox too, but we have mostly PlayStation news to talk about this week. Of course, we just saw this recent State of Play presentation. I think PlayStation fans in general are pretty pleased with what they saw. We'll talk about that in just a second. But I want to give everyone just a brief sneak peek of more Summer of Gaming events that are coming up on the horizon. Summer of Gaming will last all throughout the month of June. Next week, Thursday, June 9th, we've got the Summer Game Fest. We can usually expect some pretty big reveals out of those events. The following day, Friday, June 10th, is IGN Expo. More game reveals and surprises. And then the big one, Sunday, June 12th, is going to be the Xbox and Bethesda presentation. I believe it's 90 minutes long. Finally, a good look at Starfield, I expect. So you can watch all of that good stuff on IGN.com right here. But let's talk about the Sony State of Play, which just finished an hour or two ago. People seem to be generally pleased with what they saw. Some really big games that are coming next year. Some really big next-gen only games. Current-gen only games. Games that will only be on PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. The long-rumored Resident Evil 4 remake finally revealed, finally confirmed, even with the release date, March, I believe it's March of 2023. That one is going to be a next-gen exclusive. We finally got a release date for the fan favorite Stray, the long time coming cat in a cyberpunk world game. That's coming July 19th. It's going to be included in the all new PlayStation Plus Extra tier, which is a nice little bonus. We got a good look at Street Fighter 6. That one's coming next year. That's a next-gen only game. And then they ended the whole show with a big look at a new gameplay reveal for Final Fantasy 16 and a confirmation that's coming summer 2023, currently a PlayStation 5 exclusive. So those are the big ones for me. Jonathan, what was your sort of overall impressions of the presentation today?
Yeah, we obviously went very in-depth on Podcast Beyond, kind of about everything that happened. But for me, I think what was really interesting about State of Plays are a weird thing, and we've talked about them on the show, is that no matter what Sony sets the expectations for, it's always kind of hard to gauge of how big a State of Play is going to be. They obviously have the PlayStation Showcase banner for when they do real big first-party stuff. And so I've now come to go into State of Play as very sort of low expectations-wise. I typically kind of just, if there is a cool game or two, but kind of from minute one here to the very end, opening with RE4 Remake, closing with Final Fantasy 16, and everything in between, it was a really, really solid lineup of games. Obviously, like you were saying, I think some of the biggest heavy hitters from it are coming next year, RE4 being March 24th, summer for Final Fantasy 16, a few others, including Eternights, which I was really into. But, we saw a string of really cool console-exclusive indies coming over the next few months. We know of a few other games on the horizon. I thought overall this was a really, really solid showing of what PlayStation fans can expect, even if it's not just in the near future.
Max, what did you think?
Yeah, to echo Jonathan, it was really nice to just kind of see Sony cart out such a huge offering of variety. We got some really big AAA stuff, we got some nice small indie stuff. We even got a PC game thrown in there for PC players, which is cool. But this fall's looking a little bit dry, but it's really nice to have stuff to look forward to. And at this point, I feel like we should just consider Q1 and the first half of Q2 as partial fall, because things typically get bumped there anyway. But yeah, seeing Resident Evil and Street Fighter get shown off was huge, and a brand new FF16. There's some big, huge games in there, and I had pretty low expectations. I know that the only thing we knew going in was Horizon Call of the Mountain, which it looks cool, but it's kind of a niche game because it's for a headset we don't even have a price point on yet for a console that most people can't get their hands on. So I was expecting a lot on that. We got a little on that and a bunch of other big things. A lot of fun. Yeah,
for setting expectations that PSVR would be a big focus, I was surprised but also a little bit appreciative of how it wasn't really. It was a good 5, 6, or 7 minutes maybe, but the rest of it was big games, big indies, big stuff you care about. But yeah. I was really into it.
Yeah, big games coming next year. As Max was just saying, the second half of the year is looking a little light. Of course, we've got Stray. We have Forspoken in October, which I'm a little bit surprised wasn't there because it was a third-party game, and it's a game I think has its work cut out for it to kind of get people excited for it. They said ahead of time it was going to focus on third parties, so we shouldn't have expected God of War Ragnarok. But I also think, man, this is, this sort of E3 time of year when you're making your game announcements, this kind of would have been the time if not for God of War Ragnarok's release date, at least show us, if you have something big coming for the rest of the year. So I don't know, Jonathan, what do you think? Do you think this is there anything else we should expect big from Sony besides hopefully God of War Ragnarok for the rest of the year?
I mean, probably not first party wise, and I don't think that's a big deal considering we got Horizon Forbidden West and Gran Turismo 7 already this year. I think with God of War, if it was at this multi-game state of play, it would have overshadowed everything else. And we've seen PlayStation move into their first party games get their own dedicated state of plays, and when they're not, when they're in a multi-game thing, it's the showcase. And I know it's a very silly sort of delineation, but that's what PlayStation's just been doing. So I think, God of War, when they're ready to show it, will probably get its own 20-minute state of play in the same way Horizon did, Gran Turismo, Demon's Souls, Returnal, all of them have gotten that treatment, and I'm sure we're going to see that at some point. But, if God of War is a game that isn't coming out till September or even October, if it's a fall release, I can see them not wanting to start the hype drum right now when they, want to give it its spotlight. They're going to have months to give it its spotlight. And we're about to go through a month of people announcing big games and showing big trailers. And I think even if you put God of War at the beginning of that, they don't want to share the room. They want God of War to get its own showcase. And I think they'll give that's time when they're ready to.
Max, how about you? What's your confidence level that God of War makes it out this year?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. Again, they've loosely said 2022, and they haven't said anything otherwise. To Jonathan's point, E3 was invented at a time when video game news came out in the form of monthly magazines. Sure. Now we have this, churning 24-hour, more than that, news cycle where people are constantly making noise about stuff. So it's pretty much detrimental to announce stuff during the week of E3, but we have that kind of muscle memory, that habit of kind of carting things out. And that was also from a time when video games mostly just came out in the fall. So I don't think there's any harm in waiting till a slower week in August or whenever, July, to be like, hey, we have a closer look at God of War. It's coming out soon. We'll give you the release date, whatever it is. But properly owning that conversation and being able to really, take their time and show it off properly. And at the same time, it's also beneficial to wait until it's a little bit closer to launch and make sure it's really going to hit that target date. Because so many games we've seen have sort of been it's coming out this day in the fall. And then 20 minutes before launch, they're give us a week,
Yeah, we've seen multiple PlayStation games in the past. I think Uncharted 4 was one of them. I think a couple others get, something as small as a month or two delay. I don't think they want to do that with God of War. I think they want to do it when they're absolutely ready to and can give it the time. In the meantime, for the state of play, Stray is coming in July, Rollerdrome is a console exclusive in August, Season is a console exclusive sometime in the autumn, Forspoken is in October. Obviously smaller games, but I think that stuff is where you see the coolest innovations in games. And so for me, those are the things to look forward to, especially after a beginning of the year where we had, two of the biggest open world games I've ever played, like Horizon and Elden Ring are so mammoth of a game. I'm okay with a summer being these small, really interesting games.
Yeah, it's also that goes to show that people will still buy video games in the first few months of the year.
Yeah.
A game doesn't need to come out in October or November to be successful. That helps, obviously.
Yeah.
But, just pump out a Game of the Year edition later in the year.
Yeah, that's true. Well, what about PlayStation VR 2? We saw some games for that today. We still don't know when it's going to be released, and as Max said, we don't know how much it's going to cost. Jonathan, were you surprised that we're still left, with so many questions about PSVR 2?
I was surprised that they showed PSVR 2 to begin with here, to be honest, because to me, what the underlying current of what was here is that it's probably not coming this year, that this is probably a 2023 thing. We saw Resident Evil 8 will get VR, RE4 Remake will have VR support, Horizon Call of the Mountain will be VR, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners 2, No Man's Sky. But what's interesting is, we saw The Walking Dead 2 is going to be on both PSVR 1 and 2, and so it got a 2022 release date, but none of the others did. And so to me, that very much means probably leaning toward 2023. And, I think that's fine if it's not coming this year, but I do wonder how much it needed a focus this early on. But I will say what we were shown, or at least teased about, is promising. I think Horizon Call of the Mountain looked really cool and really good and adapted the Horizon gameplay in a very smart way for first-person VR gameplay. I think the promise of Resident Evil after RE7 was the spookiest VR experience ever. It's so good. So to know that they did that, I think knowing we'll get RE8 in VR and that we'll get RE4 remake in some capacity with VR is really exciting. I think it was a good, like, hey, we are putting big games into VR too, that this is not just going to be a bunch of small, cool knickknacks or things that show, whoa, isn't VR cool? Like, we're a decade past that point at this point. So I think they really want to show there are going to be big games on VR too, but I just think it's maybe a little early for that.
Well, I want to look ahead a little bit into Summer of Gaming, but before that, what are your personal picks for favorite announcements today, Max?
I mean, RE4. It's a known quantity, but now it's prettier. I'm into it.
And Jonathan, how about you?
I think for me it was the Final Fantasy 16 showcase trailer. I've been really, really looking forward to that one since we saw it originally at a showcase, I think last year. And what they showed off was just beautiful, massive, epic, like kind of everything I am hoping for from this really awesome medieval Final Fantasy game.
I think Final Fantasy 16 looks awesome. So Sony went first this E3 game announcement season with a fairly short presentation, but managed to pack a lot of really cool looking games into 30 minutes. Xbox and Bethesda have, I believe, 90 minutes coming up on Sunday, June 12th. What do you think? They're kind of in similar positions. Xbox also doesn't have anything announced coming later this year. They delayed Starfield and Redfall into next year. So, Jonathan, what do you think Xbox can or needs to do to at least meet the excitement level that Sony generated with its fans today?
I mean, I think they will be able to pretty easily, especially with a 90-minute showcase. It's a bit of a different show than what the State of Play was, and I think we'll get, if Sony continues their pattern, we'll get their version of it in September, which is an interesting time to do that. But I think for Xbox right now, even if they've delayed their games, I think just showing them, even when Starfield and Redfall were going to be this year, we still haven't seen anything of them. We've seen a couple cinematic trailers, some concept art, and occasional slow pans of hallways in Starfield. But I want a 7-8 minute on-stage demo of what it's going to be like to play a bit of Starfield. I want to see what a match of Redfall looks like. I think those two games have so much promise and potential that I think if Xbox can really drill home the gameplay looks at a lot of these games, especially because they have so many games announced. Like, it's a little bit opposite of PlayStation. They have so many games announced and they all sound really cool, but we mostly have cinematics except for like Hellblade and things here and there. So I think showing off those games is going to really be what excites players because they know what's to come, but they want to see how cool it's going to be.
Max, how about you? What do you expect or hope to see from Xbox and Bethesda?
I mean, I have high hopes, and I hope I'm not disappointed because it's a 90-minute chunk. But I mean, Xbox and Bethesda are both very good at putting on big, huge, loud, exciting E3 presentations. Bethesda was, I feel like, fairly late to the party in having dedicated E3 presentations, and they literally made a carnival out of it. Like they're very good at making kind of like generating that hype, and also there's that kind of pageantry of being like, hey, Fallout 4 is out this fall, but look in your pocket, you have a phone, you can play Fallout Shelter. Like, I think they're very good about like kind of springing those fun surprises that are out now, and I hope that they've kind of put their heads together with Microsoft to make really kind of spread that evenly. And to Jonathan's point, we know about a lot of Xbox games that are in the works. We don't know when they're coming out, which could bode really well. Like, I know a lot of people were kind of defeatist, being like, oh no, Redfall and Starfield have been pushed, but like I think there's a very good chance we're going to get a release date for, Hellblade, and there's tons more in the works. So looking forward to it.
And they always have the benefit of their shows of a thing we only saw with Stray in the State of Play, and we talked on Beyond about how we hope this becomes a thing for PlayStation 2, but when Xbox does their showcases, it's almost always typically, it's become a meme, but it's like the only, or available day one on Game Pass, on Game Pass before so many trailers, and that is such a great trump card to be able to play, and I imagine we'll see that with games we don't know are coming to Game Pass yet.
Was it last year where they dropped the Quake remaster?
That was in the last couple of years, yeah. I forget exactly.
But I mean, if I hope that they're going to drop something that makes me run over and turn on my Xbox and immediately start downloading something.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem unrealistic.
Yeah, I agree, Jonathan. That was a nice moment for Stray in the State of Play today. Well, the party's officially started. Sony has kicked off our Summer of Gaming. Lots more coming throughout the month. You can watch it all on IGN. I have the results from last episode's poll. We asked, which rumored game would you most like to see officially announced this summer? Unfortunately, the winning result was Ghost of Tsushima 2. I'm bummed. I would love to see that too. However, with 20% of the votes was Resident Evil 4 remake, so lots of survival horror fans happy there. Man, we got lots of good survival horror stuff today with Callisto Protocol as well, and then so we got Callisto Protocol in December, Dead Space in January, and then RE4 remake in March. It's gonna be a good few months coming up. Well, we've got a poll for you to vote on for next episode. Which game from Sony's State of Play today are you most excited for? Is it the Resident Evil 4 remake, Final Fantasy 16, Street Fighter 6? Make sure to vote at IGN.com and we'll share the results with you next episode. And that's going to do it for this special edition of Next Gen Console Watch. I'm Damon Hatfield. Thank you so much to Jonathan and Max up in San Francisco. I'm holding down the fort here in LA. We will be back next Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern with more PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news. We'll see you then.